Then out of the blue, Elizabeth told me that she had also been a model, advertising Brazilian swimsuits, and spoke about how advertisers treated her as an object.
I was a model when I was 15. I wasn't very professional, but you saw me in some cover shoots or in some catwalk shows. I was presenting once the beachwear of Brazilian beachwear. And I remember this day that they told me, oh, you got on some weight. We cannot use you for the next shooting. And I just felt ashamed. I felt, what's the right to speak about my body like that? I'm a personality. I'm just not a product. And I feel that even in the commercials and everywhere, they say sex sells. And they use actually this as an instrument just to sell their product. I don't want to be used as an object. And before I was even veiled, I just covered up my body because I felt the eyes of men. I felt they eat me because I felt I was pretty and they're really eating me when I'm wearing the bikini at the beach. And I wanted to wear long sleeve. And I started to go even in the pool wearing a t-shirt because I really felt ashamed of how they look at me and just feel, wow, oh la la, like, who's that girl? I don't want to be in any eyes of any man, just like, that he's saying something like that and that I'm an object to them, so.
Sex sells. It was not only Elizabeth who felt the hungry eyes of men eating her body. Priscilla felt the same and tried to explain about her need for more respect from men.
And also at my work, because I work in a restaurant and hotel. And sometimes men are looking at me, but I don't feel comfortable at all. And I started to change my style of clothes, to wear a scarf to cover this area. So that was a step closer to hijab, so I did it step by step. In the past, men looked at me like I was an object. And I didn't want them to look at me like I was a piece of meat. But that they respect me more.
Feminists worldwide struggle hard against the objectification of women. Their studies have found that audiences in the West are exposed to over 2,000 ads a day. On TV, in newspapers, on street billboards, all over the place. Ads sell more than just products. They sell values and images of success. They tell us how to be popular, loved, and attractive. They tell us who we should be. The sex object in advertising is a mannequin. Conventional beauty is her only attribute. She is thin, tall, young, long-legged. Most women don't look like that, but they are constantly trying hard to emulate it so as to be loved and desired. The more a woman looks like an advertising star, the more she is accepted in society. Ads like these reduce women to objects, and their sexual content is pornographic. This negatively affects the image of a woman. A few years ago, the research of Susan Fiske, professor of psychology at Princeton University, was all over the news. She proved that when men view images of highly sexualized women, the brain areas associated with handling mechanical tools light up. The media does not only shape people's perceptions of women, but also of Islam. Professor Rasha El-Dessouki, a Muslim scholar in Al-Azhar University in Cairo and an activist for more than 30 years in the United States, spoke about the media's political agenda.
Unfortunately, Islam has suffered from bad media all over the world. I have studied about 58 novels that speak about Islam and Muslims, and it does give a very bad image of Islam. The reason is all these political events that happen around the world are connected to the media. Whenever there is a very hot issue, whenever there is a fight over something, whenever there is a new revolution, you find that the media intensifies against the Muslims. And all the old images that we have seen by Orientalists in the 16th century, things that have to do with the Crusades, things that have to do with wars between Muslims and non-Muslims, they bring all these up again, conjure them up in the memory of the viewer in order to bash Islam and make it look bad. So what we advise is that people seek the sources of Islam and talk to Muslim people and not think that the media is the only source about Islam and Muslims.
Dr. Leila Ahmed, a professor in the Divinity School at Harvard University, met with us and also spoke about the media.
The idea that Islam oppresses women became just a normal view expressed in the media and so on, even though there was no ground to it. Historically, there's no evidence for this. It was just a prejudice that was being repeated by the media. And many Muslim women felt offended by this, and they wanted to make clear to whoever they were speaking with or wherever they were out in the streets that they were Muslim and they stood by it and did not accept the prejudices.
It always disappoints me when I watch the media and I see more falsity than truth about Islam. There's many experts about Islam, but they're not always Muslims themselves. They're people who get information from places that seems to be something other than what most Muslims understand. And I always find that the media will latch on to anything bad someone that happens to be Muslim does. While there are so many millions of Muslims out in the world that are doing great things, great projects, great initiatives, but they're never mentioned.
After 9/11, there was a time when I honestly hardly could bear to turn on the television, because this was when we were going to war, of course, immediately after 9/11, we were going to war with Afghanistan. And there was endless shots of women in burqa, suffering, how we had to go and rescue them. And this somehow, this was Islamic oppression of women. The burqa was a sign of that. And by extension, any kind of head covering was seen as Islamic oppression. And that became the prevailing narrative in America for a few months. It was really quite distressing. So it was very much a media issue and a political issue, but it was presented as women's oppression in Islam, and therefore Islam was just terribly oppressive. And that extended, and that was partly why I'm sure women were attacked. Young American women wearing hijab suffered the consequences of this media representation.
A lot of people were getting information from the media that wasn't correct about Islam. What I was able to do, and this was a positive thing, was be able to pass on information that was the truth about Islam. People who were wondering about it, people who didn't know anything about it, when they found out I was Muslim, they would ask me questions, and I was able to tell them what a great thing Islam is, what it meant to me, how it inspired me. And this was a positive thing that I was able to find after I converted. Even though initially I was very scared, I was afraid people would sort of turn away from me and not listen to me. But I actually found there's many people that are open to hearing what you have to say. They're actually curious. They just don't have anyone to ask.